Hey folks, this is Bob again from Daily Enduring Truth, and I just want to welcome you to Corpus Christi, the Hans and Pat Suter Wildlife Refuge. You'll notice there's a camera strap around my neck because this is where I come to do a lot of my birding. Now, where I normally take a lot of bird pictures is out in the gazebo area, but there are enough people around there I didn't want to disturb them today. It's a beautiful, beautiful area out here, and there are a lot of great birds, and I love taking pictures of birds. In fact, on my author blog, bobjamesauthor.com, I have started a series called Bird Brain Chronicles, and I'm restarting that today. I stopped about a year ago when my mother died, and I decided now I really need to find a way to get back into the joy of taking bird pictures. And I do it because I love this beautiful creation that God has made. How can you look at the variety of birds that God has that are available and not realize that there's been some great design behind all that goes on? And so I really enjoy looking at the birds and seeing the variety in God's creation. And I tend to be an environmentalist. I'm not an activist. I'm not a climate change believer. But I believe that we are called to be stewards of God's creation. And so a lot of the remedies they suggest to deal with climate change are things that I think are just common sense ideas to keep our world safe, to keep our world beautiful, and to conserve the creation as stewards of God's world. Well, this week we look at Philippians 2, and we finished that great hymn of the faith where Paul quoted the hymn that talks about Christ's death, resurrection, and what he sacrificed. And then Paul said, okay, now that he sacrificed it, now what? And he begins with a very difficult verse to understand for those of us who believe that salvation is by grace alone. And Paul believes that. We know that. And he says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. And I think it's an important, one of the commentaries I read, Word Pictures by A.T. Robertson, talked about somebody who said that Paul was could sit there as an Arminian and talk about how we need to work, as well as in the next sentence believe in the sovereignty of God, like a Calvinist. And I think it's important to realize that heresy isn't necessarily believing the wrong thing. It's emphasizing the right thing, but forgetting all things. And so like an Arminian, the heresy would be if you forget about the sovereignty of God. Yes, we should work, but we should also understand the sovereignty of God. As somebody who believes in the sovereignty of God, it would be heresy if I decided, well, since God's sovereign, I don't need to do the work. It's sort of like the old saying, pray as if all depends on God, work as if all depends on you. And it's important, or the other way of putting it when you think about end times, is live and believe as a postmillennialist, but believe as a premillennialist. And we could get into arguments about that. I'm not trying to start an argument. I'm just trying to point out the fact that as Christians, sometimes we hold views that may seem diametrically opposed, but they ultimately come together in Christ. And that's the important thing. So it's a fun study. At the end of chapter 2, it seems like Paul is winding up his letter to the Philippians. And you remember I told you there's some concern about how many letters Philippians really is. And in chapter 3, this is a spoiler alert, we will see an amazing change when Paul changes from this nice guy, here I am in prison, but I'm trusting God for you, and he really lets some people have it. So, just a foreshadow of what's going to come. You'll notice in the blog I've got all the other things going on, information about the readings going on. So, have a great day and trust God to take care of your lives.